the second fastest revving engines. Can go from like idle to redline in a couple seconds.
So the like big hype, it's mainly surfaced in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, really during COVID.
The goals of the new LFA are no different than they were with the original concept. Let's build a supercar with world-class performance. We thought about what a supercar should be, and then started to design what a Lexus version of a luxury exotic could be.
I think that's when it kind of skyrocketed. Some people got bored, started researching like, hey, what about an LFA? And realized, oh crap, this is actual Formula One technology for the street, naturally aspirated V10, which even that in itself is a dying breed. This is something a little bit more pure with it being just naturally aspirated V10. This is actually a carbon fiber chassis here. Oh, okay. It's not a steel unibody structure like a regular car. All the bits are there. It's a proper supercar.
The Lexus LFA, a legendary V10 Japanese supercar made by Toyota at a time where Japan and Toyota weren't really making supercars to compete with the likes of Ferrari, Lamborghini, and even Porsche.
Japanese, I fell in love with those. This my drug, yeah, this is my codeine. I can't overdose. Two-step beast, yes, this my magazine. Can't tuck in the coach. My faces, they tilted and they leaning. This is Nido Flow.
Alright, how do these doors work? We're having a first problem. There we go.
Helps if I unlock it.
Yeah. Oh, we got carbon fiber all in here. That's fun.
Yep. It's been a minute since I drove one of these.
Now speaking of the shift panels, that's another strange element in this car. First off, they're on the steering column instead of the steering wheel, and that is how it should be done. The column, they don't move when you're in a turn, so you always know exactly where the downshift and upshift paddle is going to be. But that's not the strange part about these things. The strange part is how they work. When you turn the car on, it's in neutral. In order to get it to go, you have to actually pull the right paddle, the plus paddle. There's no PRND drive selector in the middle. Instead, you pull the right paddle and then you're in first. Now, let's say you want to get it back into neutral. Pull both paddles. That's pretty common in cars like this. The unusual thing is what happens when you want to get it into reverse. Look all around the interior and you will not find the button for reverse.
Honestly, this like dash thing almost looks like a little bit of those newer like Mercedes.
Oh, for sure.
And the general design in here, the carbon fiber, the Alcantara, it's super cool, and it was, well, really quite very far ahead of its time. You've got a cursor, which is a little bit funny and outdated now, but that was a bit forwards at the time.
We gotta pull up a video to figure out how to get this thing in reverse.
Look all around the interior and you will not find the button for reverse.
See how annoying it is? Yeah. I know it's somewhere. Oh, right here it is. I was like,
are those all the, like, putting it all in those gears over there? Like driving and reverse, only reverse? Oh, there's a quirk right there. Quirks of the LFA. The LFA was their pursuit of perfection, but nobody said anything about usability, right? Or convenience when you're driving it. So they got rid of everything that people came to know and expect out of a Toyota. They took out all the boring parts. They took out the accessibility, you know, millions of Toyotas, only 500 LFAs. They took out the usability. What? They took out what? You take any sports car that's maybe the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, hell, even in today's day and age, and you have a lot of trade-offs. you have things that you have to compromise to be able to look cool and go fast. You're not gonna have things that are just the most comfortable things ever, or the things that make the most sense up here in the noggin. It's not always gonna make sense, but once you start hearing the engine, you start getting out there, you sure as hell look cool.
Sounds good.
It's slow, but it sounds great. I'm gonna back up. Oh God, the reverse is like complicated. It's a switch all the way up here.
Reverse gear is over here on the left of the steering column. You pull it toward you only when you're in neutral, and the car goes into reverse.
Fuck's the parking brake release? No, that's the hood.
Wow. This is pretty crazy. We found the air conditioning. Manual. In the middle. Is it in the middle? Oh, it might be right here. Test that out? Wait, no. Is it? No, it's this dude. Damn. Yeah.
I found it.
Oh, you found it? Yeah, let's go.
It's right here.
Where is it?
Right here.
So if anybody needs to know where the parking brake on the LFA is, it's right down there to the right.
Just trying to put it back in drive.
Is it this hard to put it back in drive?
The other crazy thing, if you're in reverse and you want to go back into first, you can't go directly. You have to go reverse, neutral, and then pull the right paddle, and you're back in first. And that's the strange and interesting tale of the Lexus LFA shift paddles.
This is crazy. This is at least what makes these videos fun. You know, the little shenanigans. What is that? This control, the infotainment?
Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
This is the most insane car. Oh, so those are your modes. Okay. Oh. Huh? Ah.
So it actually won't let you go into drive from reverse. We got to go neutral, then drive.
Holy.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't go in reverse. What the f? Oh, I gotta go in neutral. You have to go in neutral before you shift to reverse or drive.
Oh, that's
they warned me on that. I'm kind of glad he told me about that because we might have just been stuck there. And then back to neutral, and then to drive.
Wow, maneuvering the LFA is not an easy task. I can't imagine being like a valet trying to do this type of shit. Oh my gosh. Super easy. First try. Comparable to the other cars and everything.
No, I mean, it's super cool. It's got a lot of F1 technology. They work together with Yamaha to get the heads on here.
I'm not even, I haven't said anything yet. The sound is just like taking me over. I can't believe it. I've heard these before from the outside, but oh my God, that sound is unbelievable. That is unbelievable. That is the best sounding car I've ever heard in my life.
If somebody were to offer me a choice of any car that had ever been made, ever, I would take a dark blue LFA. That's how much I love this thing.
Rev so high, that kind of stuff. It is one of the fastest revving engines ever in history. So much so that I can't use a normal tach, it's a digital tach.
Initially, V8s were considered for the LFA, but Toyota's influence for the LFA was Formula One. A world of high revving, balanced, angry 10-cylinder engines.
Revs up to 9,000 RPM. Yeah. One cool fact with this, it revs so fast that it cannot use a normal rev.
This is what
so it doesn't have a needle, it's all digital.
It's the way it delivers that power, the sound, the responsiveness. The LFA V10 will rev from idle to redline in 0.6 seconds.
It's one of the second fastest revving engines.
That's crazy.
The Koenigsegg Jesko is the quickest one now.
Okay,
But for the longest
that's
time,
a wild
this is
car too, the
yeah,
Jesko. Yeah, I love the Koenigsegg's. The Koenigsegg's are something else too.
Yeah.
Ironically, I've seen a lot more Koenigsegg's than I have LFA's. So, yeah,
Welcome to Orange County.
Let's just the engine settle in. And here we go.
going from full idle to 7,800 RPM in 213 milliseconds, and it's an average of 31,700 RPM per second over the whole range.
That's crazy.
That the engine
That's the
performs.
fastest production revving engine I've ever heard.
Yeah,
that's
the
insane.
most responsive engine
In the world for production car, right?
We are here with the LFA, the infamous internet car that has just gone crazy over the last couple years. Originally, this car wasn't that appreciated at first. People didn't want them as much as they do now, which is why the price has gone up like crazy. Originally, it was like a $300,000 car from Lexus, give or take, like the
300 to 400 range.
And when did they start production? Like 2012-ish?
I thought it was 2008 to 10 was like the original years of production.
Okay.
They only built 500 of these cars worldwide.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, in North America, really slow seller.
Yeah.
Even though there was all this hype with the car. So, couple things. Let's back up.
He created a list of 500 specific items that a Japanese supercar needed to have. And this list included everything. The shape of the steering wheel, the materials used in the door cards, the angle of every single suspension component.
The original concept car of this, when they showed the drawings and such, it was supposed to be a mid-engine V10 car.
Okay.
So when this came out, it was a lot different than the design. Kind of like what Jaguar did with the XJ220 in the 90s. It was supposed to be V12 and all-wheel drive when they showed it at the auto show. Took a bunch of deposits, car comes out, it's rear-wheel drive only with a twin-turbo V6.
Wow.
Pissed off a lot of people,
crazy.
but it ended up being a badass car.
Yeah.
Same thing kind of here. Once people saw like the motor was in the front, and then the styling was very subtle here.
The hype was there in 2005 when they released it in Detroit Auto Show.
There in Detroit, onlookers at the Lexus booth stood with mouths agape. This was unlike anything they'd seen from the brand, or for that matter, anyone from Japan. This was a supercar.
They released it in 2005, and then it literally took them about 3+ years, maybe 4 years after that they released it and said that it was gonna go live. That wasn't because it was just some stupid stuff that they were just haggling over. This was major improvements that they were making in that time frame. Honestly, if they didn't wait that time and they released it in 2005, I don't think it would be valued as much as it is today.
But the public wouldn't get their hands on one until 6 years later. The delay would be both the reason the LFA became a legend and also why it became a failure.
Without some of these incremental changes that they made, especially the carbon fiber shell and chassis that they made, it's held up to the standard where even supercars of today are comparing themselves against it.
Still pretty. It's
if you weren't
design.
like a heavy car person in the scene or whatever, like my mom looking at this car, it's not the Lamborghini or the McLaren or something that somebody's gonna be like overly think it's like a hypercar, supercar thing.
Oh, totally.
This is $1 million. So is the McLaren Senna.
Yeah.
Senna's newer, Senna's faster.
Yeah. This car would be more so an investment in like a purchase for the rarity and like the story, I guess.
Yep.
Versus the Senna being $1 million is like you're paying for $1 million race car.
Yeah.
It almost just looks like maybe $100,000 Lexus. Like they have that model. I want to say it's called the LC500.
Yeah,
big two-door coupe with a 5-liter. Gorgeous styling on that one.
I love the interior on that one. I think honestly the LC500, I like the interior better than this one. But you know, it's like it's
also
people.
a decade newer too. So
Yeah, true. But it is easier to find the drive and the reverse in that one too.
So that was my fault. It's been like, oh gosh, I think 7 years since I've driven one of these cars.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been doing car videos and car stuff for a while now, and I haven't even seen one of these in person. This is the first time seeing it, so it gives it to how rare the car is. So even being able to drive it a couple times, it's like, that's a feat, you know? Like that's something for sure. And you gotta give my guy credit too. This guy has driven pretty much every car under the sun. It gets confusing sometimes, the more varieties of different things that you have, especially automotive crap. The quirks and the features are up the ass. sometimes, and a lot of them don't even make sense.
Move on to visibility, and specifically this window, which is the smallest window I've ever seen in any car, bar none. I don't even know why this is a window. It's only an inch high at its highest point. And the funny thing is, half of it is taken up by all these DOT numbers and the Lexus logo. This is the smallest window you will ever see. It does nothing to add to the car's visibility.
If you're driving 100 of them a month, 100 different vehicles a month, of course, it's gonna be a pain in the ass going through different ones and trying to figure out where they hide each one of their features.
Another thing that's really interesting, to get this pavement in reverse, you got this switch over here on the left-hand side. Very odd, very different, but I like it.
Another thing that's interesting with this car that a lot of people don't realize, so the gearbox, it is Formula One style, but it's a single clutch.
We're gonna shift it. We're gonna turn off the parking brake. All right. Whoa, okay, all right. Dude, the single clutch transmission is already posing a challenge. It sounds really good now that I'm actually like physically moving the car. Dude, this is an aggressive single clutch transmission.
To get it right when you're driving around town and you're in that race mode, if you're just forward out with the car and you try to upshift, there is a little bit of a break in between there.
Oh, it's like...
Some of what you heard of, like if you read about the Lamborghini Aventador with the single clutch, similar type of experience there. So one thing I did learn, if you let off between shifts, it actually goes a little bit quicker into each gear.
Does it feel more aggressive with the single shift, or is that just like, is it more of a nuisance?
A little bit of both. So if you're just normal driving and you don't let off, it feels like it's almost a second in between shifts. So it is quite a bit, and there's a power disruption where your face is coming forward towards that steering wheel, as you guys are gonna see in a bit.
It's so fast. It is so fast. But the transmission dulls the experience a little bit because it just doesn't provide that immediate upshift like a modern dual clutch does. However, when you get into those high revs, you hear that sound. All right, we're in a nice corner here. Wow.
Once you get the hang of it, it takes like about an hour or so, something will click and then you go, oh, okay. So you just kind of let off between shifts. If you've ever driven an actual H-pattern manual, we have to let off between shifts on those, right? Same thing here. If you let off and get that timing right, then the gearbox is gonna reward you, and then it's just a better experience overall.
What about the production of the engine? Because obviously you said that it took a lot longer than anticipated. The fact that they had to like change everything, you know, after the fact that they had initially came up with the concepts to release it, the things that went in to just making and producing that at the time that they did.
I would have to do some more digging and research. We're just going off of what I can remember from like 15 years ago.
More than I would know, because that's 15 years ago. I'd be 5. So you know.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So back in the late 2000s, Toyota actually did have a Formula One team.
Okay.
And for the rest of the world, this is a Toyota, right? Lexus is only for North America. So they're the ones that really built this car, and their whole goal was to build like F1 technology for the street mixed in with some of their Japanese touring car. It's like GT500 and GT300 class. They've always raced in that category, so they wanted to really make like a motorsports derived car for the street and their customers and their big fan base.
And this was like their first supercar, like first like technical, like that was the thing when at least I heard when it was first coming out, that people were like, Lexus is making a supercar, like who wants that? Like that was the thing that was kind of pushing people away from it at first, and now it's blown up.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. There was even, all the way up until like 2019, there was still a brand new Lexus LFA sitting in a dealership in the United States.
That's wild.
Right, so they were...
So the like big hype and everything, it's mainly surfaced in the last like 3-4 years.
Yeah, really during COVID. I think that's when it kind of skyrocketed. People were bored, obviously they couldn't travel, they were trapped inside their houses, and a lot of business owners were still making good money. So some people got bored, started researching like, hey, what about an LFA? And they dig in and then realize, oh crap, this is actual Formula One technology for the street, naturally aspirated V10, which even that in itself is a dying breed because nobody makes V10s anymore.
For sure, and you know, at a certain point here, naturally aspirated is going to be a thing of the past as well, with all the hybrids and everything kind of showing up these days, the new Revuelto with Lamborghini. They use Formula One technology for the engine. The engine was in collaboration with Yamaha. One of the main things that Yamaha did for the Lexus LFA was making the engine sound the way it does. And they were saying, yo, Yamaha, it's time to beef this thing up so people know what's coming when they're flying down the road and you can't see it, it's coming around the corner. We want you to know it's an LFA before it even gets here.
And it's just heavenly. There is quite frankly nothing better than that sound.
This is the kind of car that the people in this area call the cops even though we're going like 30, just because they hear it.
All of that induction noise came through what they call the surge tank, which is basically an intake manifold. They turned to Yamaha, and as you know, Yamaha has two parts of it. You can buy a piano or a guitar from Yamaha, so they have a legendary music department, and obviously they have their motorsports or engine department from their motorcycles. And they went to them to design this surge tank, and it's ribbed for your audible pleasure. So much like in a cello or a violin, there's little ribs throughout this intake manifold that give you the correct resonance, and they're looking for 400 hertz.
Oh man, that is so beautiful. It's gonna be, I'm debating where to put it, first or second. I'll tell you that right off the bat.
Well, hopefully Lexus will make a sequel because we just heard the Lexus LFA. Yeah.
No way.
Almost everything in this engine is acoustically tuned, from the surge tank to the ribbed engine walls. This means that when different components in the car vibrate, they all vibrate in harmony, producing a uniform sound.
Like, not only did they change things within the engine to be able to tune it correctly and make it the badass monster that it was at the time, right? Now every car's got over 1,000 horsepower, and you know, 10 years from now, your mom's minivan's gonna smoke this thing because it's got 15 electric engines in it. But at the time, 550-ish horsepower was insane.
So the whole concept of it was to blend the chords. The exhaust tone and the intake charge or the surge tank had to have this balanced tonal quality, like chords playing in a progression. The only time that they would change that third chord was at the higher RPM range to give it a little bit of bite. So between 8,000 and 9,000 RPMs, that tonal quality would slightly change to give it this screaming sound. They wanted to be more of an exhaust warm tone or a bass tone below 3,000 RPMs and then be all induction tone after that.
But they made specific changes within the chambers of the actual design of the car and the interior of the car. Little openings in the cabin of the car that allow the engine sound to come into the cabin at different points and kind of surround you. So it's almost like, you know, V10 surround sound in here.
So there's a main line or a main tube that goes from the surge tank to the dashboard. That's the main induction tone.
And that's for the higher frequencies. And then they have two ports by your footwell for the lower bass harmonics to create almost this 3D effect inside the cabin.
But this is something a little bit more pure, with it being just natural aspirated V10. Another special thing is the chassis. This is actually a carbon fiber chassis here. It's not a steel unibody structure like a regular car. So I mean, all the bits are there. It's a proper supercar.
Yeah.
So you can see why the value has gone up so high now.
It took 5 years of sweat, toil and cash to design this car, and then just before they put it on sale, someone said, you know, I think it would be better if the body were made from carbon fibre rather than aluminium, and they began all over again. How much would that cost?
Being able to make that carbon fiber chassis and shell that they did was very impressive. This is another thing that I found out when I was researching it. Experts at Toyota and other companies, they had given Toyota a timeline of how long it would take to create and master making their own carbon fiber and being able to produce these on cars and build a substantial product with carbon fiber. They said, you know, good luck, Buster. You're gonna take 10 years doing this. And Toyota said, well, we don't have that amount of time. We almost killed all the hype that we got back in 2005. You think we're gonna take 10 years to be able to develop and research this? So they produced all of their in-house carbon fiber machines, figured out how to work on it, and be able to construct the entire thing and make their own carbon fiber in a year. I mean, how impressive is that?
This example is fetching somewhere in the mid 800 range.
Yeah.
The rarest ones are going to be your Nuremberg editions. Those are ones with a bigger wing in the back and then the different wheels, a little more downforce. There's only, I want to say 50 of those. Those are in the 1.5 million range now.
This project was purely to show the world, consumers and other automakers alike, that Toyota wasn't fucking around, Lexus wasn't fucking around. You know, Japan can build a badass supercar that can contend with Lamborghini, Ferrari, and all the big dogs on the scene at that time.
And it's very Japanese. And by that I mean the styling. You know, it's funny, if you go back to the 60s and 70s, the Japanese copied a lot from the Italians and the American stuff. Like you look at the Mazda Cosmo, some of it looks like a Thunderbird, some of it looks like an Alfa Romeo. It has a little bit of everything in it, whereas this is pure Japanese.
So much so that when they raced the stock Nürburgring edition Lexus LFA on the Nürburgring, it actually got the fastest time of any production car at the time.
And the thing I like about this is every piece of this car, much like these Bugattis behind me, bespoke. By that I mean they're made specifically for this car. This wasn't a car that used somebody else's transmission, somebody else's brakes, somebody else's engine. It was all done by Toyota as an engineering exercise, essentially not to make money, because even at, I think these are priced at $375,000.
Yep, to start, yep.
Even at that price point, they don't make any money on this car. That's how much engineering goes into it.
Toyota really spared no expense in making these LFAs and making them the best that they could possibly be. It is estimated that they spent around $800 million in the whole project alone, getting everything, sourcing it all, doing all the research and funding to be able to create this thing. They tested it out in their private racetracks. They used the cars like the McLaren F1 and the Pagani Zonda as benchmarks for the LFA, because those were like the big dogs at the time. I mean, they're still like pretty much the big dogs kind of across the board. I know that you have a lot of new crazy stuff coming out, but those are still super heavy hitters now, which is cool. You kind of see all these legends popping up. Another, I don't know, admirable thing about it, it kind of sucks, but it's kind of cool that they would just do this in general. They spent the $800 million on the entire project altogether, but when they were making the cars one at a time, each of the LFAs cost $750,000 to make, and they were being sold at $375,000 each. So while it was a very expensive car for the buyer, they were actually making all of these cars at a loss. They didn't profit at all from the LFA project. People are so crazy over this car that there are like forums of people who will like track down all 500 of the LFAs or whatever. And this was like number 400 something, 408 maybe? I think so. I think that's what it said. When they were like saying that, it had like, how many miles does this have? Like 2,000 or 4,000?
So this one's at 4,600 miles.
Okay, so, you know, for how old the car is, that's extremely low.
Oh, for sure.
Like that's...
And it's been well looked after, I mean.
Most of them are, you know, collector edition things. People aren't like 100%. Driving them that much. They're keeping them for the collecting aspect of it. They pretty much know that it's going to go up in value, and they're keeping it as like an asset that's like kind of fun sometimes.
I mean, you'll see guys with an F50 and it's got 1,200 miles or so. So
yeah,
it just depends on the car category and that stuff.
Yeah.
These more modern type of supercar, hypercars, you can drive them quite a bit more.
Yeah.
Their cooling systems are solid. The cars are built different.
So why do you think this one has such low miles then? Just from collecting and just people just, you know?
I think this is normal usage on miles. I mean, I've seen some where they have only a couple hundred miles. This one was actually driven, it was enjoyed. Because even those ones where you see like, hey, it's only a couple hundred miles, you're like, oh, great, it's a 300-mile car. Those can be problematic as well.
But one of the other reasons why I love this car so much is because you told me that you are gonna put miles on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna put I don't care. I didn't buy it new. It's already got 900 miles on it.
Is that how many it's got? Yeah. I didn't realize it was only 900.
Yeah.
So that's what you're considering a mild car to be.
Well, I don't have another car that has 900 miles on it.
To keep them sitting for so long,
they can rot.
Yeah.
They have seals go bad, suspension stuff go bad. This one, it's an example where if somebody purchases it and they want to be able to take it to Cars and Coffee, go do a weekend drive up the coast, you can do all that.
Yeah. And with the ones that are only like a couple hundred miles, it's kind of like a shame to do that to them.
Well,
or
you
like
might have to restore it too.
Yeah.
It's not like you can get it and drive it. It has the original tires. You can't drive that on the street.
Yeah.
I mean, there's old fuel in there, the oil. I mean, there's a lot of different factors to consider.
Yeah.
Where this one's a driver.
That's good. That's good. Because yeah, when you look at it, like it's over 10 years old and it doesn't even have 5,000 miles on it, you'd think like, maybe that's problematic for the car not being run so much.
You never want to let them sit like more than a month. You always want to start them, you know, move them around because they could get flat spots. Just like you, if you sat up in a hospital bed for 6 months at a time, you deteriorate. Right? So your muscles are going to atrophy. I mean, if you sit perfectly still, like you're going to have to relearn how to walk. Right? If somebody has a boot on when they tear up an ankle or something, then their foot doesn't work.
Yeah.
Car's going to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's a good you know,
analogy
comparison right there for sure. Yeah. No, I like that.
Come by and check it out while it's still in the showroom.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is great. The rest of the collection is pretty fun too. Do you have a favorite of the collection?
In here right now, it's 765. I'm a big McLaren guy.
Okay. And with the like comfort and everything of this LFA and everything,
we're kind of 50% accelerating. I'm not super pleased with the speed, but this thing is so comfortable and smooth. Like the car makes up for its lack of speed with its extreme comfort.
Yeah.
Like these are some comfy seats.
These are probably the most comfortable sports car, supercar seats I think I've ever sat in.
For real.
I've heard rough things about McLaren comfort. What's the
So, I think it's kind of a fallacy though. That car has the most advanced suspension of any street car on the market.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Controlled.
I did not know that.
So it's on like a spectrum, if you will. When you get inside the car, you can make it comfort. So then basically each A-arm's going to be able to drop down and soak up bumps and such.
Okay.
And there's a sport mode, tightens it up. Then race mode is rock hard. Unfortunately, most people get inside that car, put the suspension in race, power in race.
Ah, okay.
You can go max power and keep the suspension soft. And
Oh,
you put
that's
the power
cool.
down better too.
That's cool to know. What about the seats and everything? Are they like comfortable?
3 choices. So you have the comfort seat, which is adjustable with lumbar.
Yeah.
There's the mid-range seat, which is out of a P1, and then the top of the line seat is the Senate
Oh,
seat.
the Senate, yeah.
those-
The whole like carbon bucket
Yeah.
seat. Yeah, okay.
You're giving up comfort as you go up that range, but then
Yeah.
they have serve a purpose too because they're going to hold you in place. You're actually going to track the car, you want the Senate seats.
That's fun. This is the favorite of the collection?
In here right now, for sure.
What's the horsepower on this guy right here?
These are 554 horsepower. It's a 4.8 liter V10.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, mainly it's the collectability. It's a good place to park your money. We see that these things just keep
And literally park your money because you're not going to be driving it that much with the 46.
That's up to you.
Yeah.
This one's got full body clear bra on it. It has some miles on it, so you can definitely drive it.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt it.
That's good.
You should enjoy stuff like this.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. I agree on that. And it's good that this one is one that you're able to actually put on the road and not just store while it, deteriorates.
Yep.
So this is cool.